All right, folks, my second time doing this video. I just got a notification from Amazon that I got a book that I had ordered. Dr. Joel Fuhrman's Eat to Live, The End of Heart Disease. I'm on a transformation journey with my health. But I want to say this real quick. Today's video is going to be a little different than what you're used to from me. I'm going to be way more candid than I usually am. And these are conversations that I've had with my therapist about not only the grief from losing my wife 4.5 months ago, but more also from the standpoint of a strained relationship with my stepchildren. And I'm gonna tell you this, some of this video you may or may not like, y'all may judge me, but if you do, I basically deserve it, because I'm gonna talk about my journey and where I used to be and how my mindset and my thought process concerning this has shifted and has changed. I used to be a person that was very hypercritical of step parents, and it's funny how the oxymoron, like I wasn't a stepfather, but yeah, I had an opinion, about people who are. I was very critical of step parents who were not as favorable to the children when they come into a marriage, the children that are biologically theirs from a previous relationship or marriage. It used to bother me when some of these either fathers or mothers would come into these new marriages and be a little bit more critical of the one that's not there. So seemed to be like a little bit more hard towards them, a little bit more like they showed more favoritism towards the ones that were theirs as opposed to the ones that were not theirs. And having looked back in retrospect, looking at my own situation when I got into the marriage, I realized that a lot of times, you want to be the bigger person, be the adult in the situation, and I definitely encourage that. If you are the adult, you have to be the person that seeks reconciliation. But it takes two parties to work together. And to be honest with you, I had 4 stepchildren, and 2 of them were reasonable, but there were 2 that gave me hell. I'm gonna be honest with you. And and even at times all 4. And I had 2 biological children that didn't live in the house. And then I had sometimes where my wife and we couldn't see eye to eye. And sometimes she'd take sides and say things to me. This is just me being honest, open and candid on this channel. And she would say things to me that were somewhat disrespectful in front of the children. And it made it okay for them to feel like they could walk all over me, for lack of a better term, and say things that were just out of order, out of line, in a house that I was paying bills with, feeding them, buying groceries, school, different things they needed, and was acting as a parent from not only an emotional support, leadership standpoint, but also a provision standpoint. And, I'm from the old school. I was raised by parents that, you didn't talk back, especially if you living in my house under my roof. There's certain things that you're going to respect. And so that's what was happening. I was living in a situation where I felt like I wasn't allowed to be a man. And so that was causing problems. I was living in a house. Excuse me, y'all. Excuse me. I'll be right back. My god sister, nieces, and nephews in town, and they just went to get groceries. Everyday life coming to the house. But I was in a place where I felt like I wasn't allowed to be a man, and it caused problems. It caused major problems, and as a result, it kind of helped me understand how, like, even if you love on a child, you can do everything you can to try to be a parent to that child and love that child. But something about when that child is, now I understand, I've seen cases where, you know, if the child allows the step parent to be that person, but it takes a lot of work, because when I entered the marriage, my stepchildren were teenagers. And so it was a real strain, because a lot of the damage had already been done in past marriages and past relationships. And as a result, you know, it caused a lot of tension in the marriage. And it was times where I was pushed to my limits with them. And so much so to where the residual damage has caused me to have to go to therapy about it, because it was such a strained situation, you know. And like I said, I used to be real judgmental about parents that were not would treat their own children, biological children, differently than the ones that aren't theirs. But I'm gonna tell you something, you know, before you judge somebody, you know, if you haven't walked in their shoes, don't judge people, because you have no idea what they have to deal with. And I understood, because I raised my children to be respectful. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. You know, set order in them when they were young, and they understood the importance of, they respected their teachers at school. They respected anybody who was in authority over them at church, in the community, at school, their bosses on their job. I taught them to be respectful to adults. And when I entered into a family as a step parent, you know, my wife's style of parenting was much different than mine. And there was a lot of things that they felt like, because they could disrespect her, that they could disrespect me. And I wouldn't even allow them to disrespect her. I would stand in the gap and be like, look, you're gonna respect your mom, but you know, when you got four of them being disrespectful at the same time, you know, and you having to deal with that. And my own biological children didn't live in the house. So a lot of times, you know, I felt like it was 5-on-1, for lack of a better term. And there were times where out of anger and frustration, I would leave the house. I would drive to a store, go somewhere, go to Walmart, go to Starbucks, go sit in a cafe, Panera Bread, and, you know, my drug of choice. I was eating my problems away. I was gaining a lot of weight, all kinds of things that were stressing me out. Sometimes I go see a movie, go out of town, go to the next city, and just try to find something to do just to get out of, because there was no peace in my house. It was very tumultuous inside my home. And it taught me something. It taught me how to love people in spite of themselves, but it also taught me to understand that as a step parent, you know, that's what you are. Your mama's husband, your daddy's wife. A lot of times, you know, that's the dynamic, and you'll always be perceived as that. And that's what they used to call me. They'd be like, that's mama's husband. They would say that. They refer to me as that. You know, a lot of times right to my face, you know. And I'm feeding you, I'm taking care of you, I'm providing for you, trying to make sure you have everything you need, treating you with the same love and respect and honor as I do my own children. And you continue to disrespect me, to reject me in my own house. And it was hard. And it takes a lot of swallowing of your pride to be able to deal with and address these kind of issues. And like I said, you know, don't you let somebody make you believe that it's the same. It is not the same. Not the same. Because they are not your children. At the end of the day, they're not yours. They're not your biological children. And if somebody shows a little more favoritism, there's got to be a reason, because there's two sides to every story, you know. So before you, well, they so disrespectful towards they, you know, before you open your mouth, make sure you know the entire context of the situation. Because I'm going to tell y'all, context is everything. When it comes to any relationship, there are two sides to every story. Remember that. And it was hard. It was a very hard time for me. You know, God is helping me get through the healing in it. But I'm gonna tell you something. I see things through a different lens, and I see things much differently than I used to see them before I was in those shoes. So there's probably a reason, you know. Let's just be real, you know, because when they're not yours, they don't think like you think. They don't feel like you feel. They don't have the same. It's just something, a connection between when someone is a biological child. And it's different. Like if you get them from birth, that's a little bit different. If you were dating and she was pregnant or whatever, and you know, you got together, you got married, you were there from birth or from 2 or 3, anything past 3 years old is when it starts getting hard. I've noticed from what I've watched and seen. And just imagine me coming into the marriage where the youngest one was 11 years old. And so you do the math, you know. You know, I said, you know, just be very careful, you know, how you judge, because unless you walk in those shoes, you don't know. All right, y'all. It's Brandon, Pastor Brandon. I love y'all. Hope this video inspired you to look at life much differently. If you've never been a step parent, please don't pass judgment. All right, I'm out.